And welcome to another Cardinals Nest here on HBC TV 25, the sports show devoted exclusively to St. Mary's University and its athletic programs. I'm your host, Dean Beckman. My co-host is Donnie Netto, the sports information director for the Cardinals. And Donnie, a big show today. We have baseball, softball, track, tennis to all talk about. And also the guest during the interview show is one of our favorite people in the entire coaching staff at St. Mary's, Sam Borawski, in her first year as assistant softball coach.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to have Sam on, to kind of get the feel of, like you had mentioned, a first-year assistant coach, former player, having played for Coach Miller. It'll be nice to kind of pick her brain in terms of how different it is to be on the other side of the diamond in terms of having to be a coach rather than a player, and talk a little bit about her and her sister and what it's like to first play with her and then to actually have to coach her too.
And we've had a fun sibling theme going kind of all year on the Cardinals Nest with the Kinneys especially, and so now we'll get the Borowski point of view, right?
Right. It's really, it's kind of neat if you look at St. Mary's, and like you said, you've got the Kinneys, the coach and the player. You got Greg and Bill Moore, the coach and the assistant coach, and it's kind of a family affair. And I know that it is interesting to talk to them about what it's like, especially when we had Ben Kinney, talking about what it's like to coach your brother, and now we'll get to have Sam on and talk a little bit about coaching her sister. And they played together last year, so it's kind of an interesting switch, and certainly not something that's probably overly easy to do, is to change the hats like that.
Right. And then at the very end of the program today, Nathan Voller will be putting Jacob Frost from the baseball team in our student athlete spotlight, so that'll be at the very end of today's show. Donnie, before we bring Sam in though to talk softball, we need to talk softball because a huge win knocking off St. Kate's this past week at St. Mary's. It was over the weekend, a really exciting first game of that doubleheader.
Yeah, no question. And you look at the schedule that they had last week, and you've got number 7 Luther on Tuesday, where they dropped two games that were very, very good competitive games, and then to come away with a big win in the first game against St. Catherine. Again, a team that's nationally ranked in the polls right now, so a big win there. Unfortunately, they couldn't come up with the second win in game 2, but they're playing very well right now, and it's exciting to see them get some home games. I mean, it's been such a crazy spring already. While we're taping this, they'll be playing St. Benedict, and it'll be the first game that they'll actually play on the date that it was scheduled. The Luther games last week were moved up a day because it was going to be nice, and then the games against St. Kate's were moved back a day because last Saturday, if anybody remembers, was probably one of the worst days of the spring we've had. So it's good that things are kind of rolling along right now, and everybody's kind of getting into the swing of playing, and right now the softball team's playing very well.
Well, and as you look at that doubleheader with St. Kate's, again, that was the first loss of the season for St. Catherine. It was a 6-5 game, very exciting, but even the second game was only a 3-run difference. So I thought throughout both games the Cardinals played really well, and we can ask Samantha about this later, but a shot in the arm for sure for the softball team, showing that they can compete with these ranked teams.
Absolutely, and the schedule just continues to get, I guess when you're talking MAAC, every doubleheader is tough and important, but you've got St. Ben's playing very well right now at 12-6, and then they've got Bethel and St. Thomas this weekend. So it's it's just continues to be a very difficult schedule, and a win like that certainly is a shot in the arm, and it gives them some much needed confidence, and does show, like you said, that they can play with the best of the best, and I think that you can even take the 2 Luther games into that as well. When you're playing a team that's ranked 7th in the country, and you're playing them right to the bitter end, it's certainly a good sign of what this team is capable of. And you certainly have to tip your cap to Brittany Burkhauser. What a great 2 games she had against St. Kate's. She goes 3 for 4 with a home run and a double, drives in 4 of the 6 runs in the first game, and then comes up with both hits in the second game. So a very, very good kind of breakout game for her. She's showing some power this year. That home run against St. Kate's was her second of the year, and that leads the team. So it's good to see her swinging the bat well. Mariah Harper continues to play very well, and just is incredible at the plate right now. So much confidence. That ball's got to look like a beach ball to her, because it just seems like every game she is just continuing to play very well.
Yep, all right, so we'll talk more with Samantha Borawski, the assistant coach, about those players and about the team a little bit later on here in the show. Now let's go to baseball, Donnie. As we tape this, the baseball team headed to St. Peter to take on Gustavus. Right now they're in a 3-game skid, but really no fault of their own because, again, we're playing a lot of ranked opponents, some very good teams in Division III, including, I believe, this past week they had the runner-up in Division III from a season ago.
Yeah, you look at the teams that they played last week. They had 5 games last week. They played 2 against UW-La Crosse, ranked 18th in the country, and then you've got the game against the Gophers, one of the, right now picked to win the Big Ten, and then you've got the 2 games against St. Thomas, again a team that's ranked 21st in the country. So that was a tough 5-game stretch for them. And I talked to Coach Winicky, and he's like, nobody's hitting the panic button. Everything's okay. You got to keep in perspective. Sometimes the opponents that you play, when you play them, and you look at, they played La Crosse on Tuesday. You go up to the University of Minnesota on Wednesday. You play the Gophers for 9, and then you've got St. Thomas this last weekend. So a tough stretch, but they're playing some good ball too. I think the one thing that certainly Coach Winicky would like to see a little bit is to get that offense going again. When they only scored 4 runs against St. Thomas, they scored 1 run against the Gophers. So he'd like to see that kind of return to where it was when they were on their spring trip. But it's hard to believe. It's a long season, but a lot of games left. The MIAC is really what's important. 2 big games, like you said, against Gustavus as we tape this, and then they've got St. John's on Saturday at Max Morlock Field. So, just like I said with the women, every game is going to be huge, and every game is going to be a fight to the finish. And I think that's the neat thing about the MIAC is it doesn't matter who you play. It's going to be a battle from first pitch to last.
Right, and we should talk about one of the seniors on the baseball team this year, Cale Paczynski, because he's been sort of highlighted and profiled by the Minnesota Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. They did a nice profile of excellence on Cale. He's a public relations and journalism major at St. Mary's, and so and they did a nice feature on how he's taken the academic side and really made the most of his opportunities there, sort of parlayed those opportunities into some real-world professional experience, but also excelling on the baseball diamond too.
Yeah, and you talk about a perfect student athlete. Like you said, he's done so much in the classroom and taken what he's learned at St. Mary's and kind of brought it into the real world. I know he spends a lot of time working for the Daily News, and then like you said, he's having a great senior year on the ball field. And as they get ready for Saturday's game against St. John's, he's very taken a really leadership role in the Strikeout Cancer Day, which is Saturday against the Johnnies. So again, it's one of those things that you love to see with our student athletes. You're amazed at how much they can fit into a day. You look at a baseball, or you can talk to Sam too, a softball practice. It's a couple, 2-3 hours of your time. Then you've got studies. Then you've got your class time that you have to go to the classes, and then you still find time to do other things. And I think that what Cale has done with his with his 4 years at St. Mary's is pretty atypical of what our student athletes are doing. And you look at we had Jace Pater on last weekend from the cross country and track and field teams, and he's really instrumental in the jogging for Jack this Sunday. So it's really, really exciting to see our student athletes kind of take a hold of something, take a hold of a cause, and really kind of run with it and see what you can do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. A little side note, Cale also a former HBC employee as well. Take a look at track and field, Donnie. It was the home opener for the outdoor track and field season, and 7 first-place finishes for St. Mary's.
Yeah, it was a great start for the outdoor season, and I know Coach Anderson was really hemming and hawing. They did have to push their meet back to Sunday as well as the baseball and softball did because of the weather on Saturday. He really wanted to run it on Saturday, kind of get things going. He waited that extra day, got a nice day outside, and the Cardinals certainly performed well. James Davis, we've talked a lot about him in the indoor season, and he really has picked up right where he left off, winning the 100 and the 200. Morris Dennis, we'll talk about Morris every single week because he is just he's a freak of nature when it comes to the 400, and now that he's outside, I think that you're really going to see what he's capable of. It's it's kind of an interesting story in that he's such a big guy. And when he runs indoors, it's very hard for him to, because the corners are much sharper and you actually have to turn more. lot tighter with the running, so he struggles a little bit more indoors than he does outdoors when he can really kick it into gear. And so I'm excited to see what he'll do this entire year. He's just going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, he did the 400 in 2 minutes, 0.36 seconds.
Yeah, we won't compare like our running to what Morris can do. That's for darn sure. But he's had a great career so far, and he's only a sophomore. And Maria Mazzarelli had a great day in the pole vault, and so people continue to kind of step forward, and I think Coach Anderson is really excited about what this outdoor season can bring, and I do know that he's really excited to get some warmer weather.
Yeah. Donnie, women's tennis, April 2nd, they lost to Bethel 8-1, but then had a trip to Green Bay, which usually doesn't work out so well for Minnesota teams. But this trip to Green Bay did work out very well for St. Mary's women's tennis. They came away with 2 victories.
Yeah,
there.
2 big wins for the Cardinals against St. Norbert and against Stevens Point, and it's been kind of a roller coaster ride for the tennis team right now, and right now they're playing very well. They've got a big match this weekend. They've got Gustavus and St. Olaf this weekend, basically a home and home on the road on Saturday, and then at home on Sunday. So 2 very, very talented teams in St. Olaf. They're 6-1 right now, and Gustavus is Gustavus. They're among the best in the MIC year in and year out. They're sitting at 12-6 right now, so it's going to be a big weekend for them. And I know Coach Hallberg is always excited to see how his team can stack up against basically the best in the conference, and that's what he'll get this weekend.
Yep. And then in men's tennis, Donnie, they lost to Bethel 9-0. Bethel, of course, always one of the better teams in the conference.
Yeah, it was a tough match. Coach Hallberg knew it was going to be a battle, and Bethel is so talented and so deep that it was unfortunate that it was a 9-0 outcome, because if you broke the match down a little bit, so many close games in there, and unfortunately the bounces just did not go Coach Hallberg's way. They've got St. Olaf this weekend. Again, St. Olaf's playing very well. So the Cardinals, the men's team is kind of slowing their schedule down a little bit. They've got St. Olaf this weekend, and then they've got a match the following weekend against Hamlin, and then they've got McAllister. So it's kind of a slower period for them, as the women seem to be a little more busy at the end of the year. The men were much more busy at the beginning of the year, so it's a little less strenuous for the guys here coming toward the end of the year.
All right, so we're going to take a break. Donnie's going to unfurl a long list of questions for Samantha Borawski. Samantha is the assistant women's softball coach at St. Mary's, and we'll bring her in next on HBC.
Want the latest news on St. Mary's University athletics? Watch the Cardinals Nest on HBC TV 25. Dean Beckman and SMU Sports Information Director Donnie Netto will talk about the past week in Cardinal athletics, highlighting the best in each Cardinal sports team. Player and coach guests will add their stories and insight each week with new shows Thursdays at 5 p.m. and replays Fridays at 6:30 p.m. and Saturdays at 7:30 a.m. on HBC TV 25.
We chose HBC because they're a local company. They have a big audience in Winona, which is the geographic group that we're looking for. Mel is very easy to work with. She's genuinely concerned about how our money is being spent, and she does everything she can to make sure we get the most for our money. She takes care of us. So whenever there's a problem, which is rarely, I know that I can go to her and she's going to take care of it.
To see how HBC advertising can help your company, call Melanie at 507-474-5802.
And we're back here on the Cardinals Nest on HBC TV 25. Dean Beckman, Donnie Netto, and Samantha Borawski joining us here on the Cardinals Nest. Samantha is the assistant softball coach at St. Mary's under head coach Jen Miller, but also a former player, and so has gone from player to assistant coach. So Samantha, we'll get to those questions in a little bit, but this is your first appearance on the Cardinals Nest. So
It is.
I think the first question we want to ask is, did you ever dream when you walked in here as a freshman that you would be walking out as an assistant coach and then eventually coaching your sister as well? So tell us about how you got to St. Mary's and sort of what your goals were when you arrived here 5 years ago now, and how things have transpired since then.
Well, as an incoming freshman, I was excited. Obviously, I love St. Mary's, love the campus, love visiting, and it was just a bonus to be able to play softball. So going through 4 years, absolutely love the program, the people I got to meet and be with. coach, or having Coach Miller as a coach was awesome, and it's even better now to have her as kind of a colleague and peer, because she has so much knowledge and experience that it's just awesome to be able to have her let you be hands-on and kind of do it for yourself and kind of figure it out. So.
And what was your major at St. Mary's?
Sports management and marketing.
All right, so certainly from the sport management side, you've been able to take that into
Definitely.
coaching, because coaching a team, even assistant coaching, there's a lot of management involved, isn't there?
For an assistant, I think management is more of your job, essentially, making sure players are happy, kind of trying to help them with that whole balance like you guys talked about, where they got to balance life, academics, and then on top of that, athletics. So I think there's a lot of pieces that go into it.
And so, Samantha, I would imagine then being a coach on the field, sort of your senior year, made the transition into coaching a little bit smoother and easier for you.
Definitely. One of the things Coach Miller does a really good job with is making sure that as a player, you kind of learn how to teach the skills, and so when you graduate, you can go back and coach at any level. So it was just already an easy transition, just in general, having to know the skills and just hop right into it.
Right.
So.
Does it have a little bit of an advantage being a catcher as a player? Because a lot of times you see that catchers are the ones that make the best coaches, because they kind of see the field, they see all the positions. You have to understand everything. Did that have an advantage for you?
I mean, I don't know if it was a huge advantage, but it's easier for scouting and stuff. It helps a lot just because you're able to pick up on things. I mean, as a catcher, I think you kind of pick up on the small details. So I don't know if it's necessarily a huge advantage, but I do see some perks to it.
The other thing too that I think needs to be addressed is you go from co-player friend to a lot of these people. Now you're coaching them, and one of them happens to be your sister Allie, right?
Yeah.
So how did you and Coach Miller address that? Obviously it was something you probably had to talk about, something you had to think about before you accepted the position, right?
Definitely.
And then you would obviously have to address that with the team. So what can you tell us about that aspect of it?
Well, originally when I was kind of asked about taking the position, I immediately kind of talked to Allie and was like, so would it be weird? Is this something that you'd be okay with? And she's like, yeah, I mean, I kind of see you as my coach already, since last year was like the only year we've ever played together. So in years of travel ball, we've never played on the same team. So it's kind of one year was nice, but we always kind of saw each other in that different role. So the only thing that sometimes happens is just the whole, she's angry and she wants to yell at us, and it's like, well, remember where you're at.
Right.
Can you back up and talk a little bit about last year then? Like you said, it's the only year that you played with Allie. What was that like? Because growing up, you were on two different teams all of the time. What was it kind of special to be able to play with her one year?
It was nice. I mean, if we're not going to separate places every weekend, I mean, once in a while it gets tiring having to be like, okay, I'll see you on a Monday. Tell me how it goes. So having to play one season together is nice, just because then you kind of know and you can see what she's doing, and having played together in the backyard like for all the years, I mean, it's nice to just now play on the field, and you kind of know and can read what she's like too. So since we have that sibling bond, it's I can kind of read her, hey, you're kind of getting angry right now, so you kind of need to relax.
One more coaching question, Samantha, and that is, what about coaching has been the biggest surprise for you that you never really thought about when you were that coach on the field? But just what are some of the aspects of coaching that kind of surprised you a little bit?
I think the biggest aspect that is a huge change is that as a player you forget that, you think I just have my individual today and there's no big deal. But then you forget as a coach, it's like, I have 24 individuals that I'm going to today. So just making sure to always stay focused, because that's a bigger thing now as a coach, since you do have to have 24 players. As a player, you just have to worry about your hour. And then also just the behind-the-scenes stuff.
Right.
Like, there's so much that goes into preparing for game day that as a player, you don't always see that. You're like, okay, I just have to be ready to play. And now you don't realize how much the coach is actually doing behind the scenes to get that win.
Now she's realizing how much the coaches spend time in my office too. I know Sam kept looking at me because Sam and I have been doing a lot of things together. Sam, talk a little bit about the season. I mean, I gave my opinion of how things have been going. Very good spring trip, came back, and again, you played very well against Luther and against St. Kate's. Are you feeling that you guys are about where you should be right now?
Yeah, we're off to a really good start. I mean, it's a younger team, so we have a lot of freshmen and sophomores starting in the lineup. So I think it's just about getting them back into it, getting the live at-bats and stuff. So spring trip really was nice for that purpose. I think we played Luther really well. I mean, they were close games. We were right there with them the whole way. Same thing goes for St. Kate's. Just beating them was the icing on the cake. So I think it's kind of sending a message to the conference saying, hey, we can hang with you and we can beat the best of the best.
Yeah, was that kind of a shot in the arm that you needed? Because certainly you did have some moral victories this year, but you can only have so many of those, and it's not propelling you to that next level. But I think that St. Kate's win kind of made a statement, right?
Definitely, I think so. Just because they've been playing, that was their first MIAC game, so it just kind of sends a message saying, hey, your first MIAC game you lost. So, and it's nice for us to just kind of get that first win under our belt in the conference.
And you have a good, having been a player just last year, you have a really good handle on everybody on the team. Who's been the biggest surprise to you thus far this season?
Biggest surprise, I don't know if it's necessarily a surprise because I just know how hardworking she is, but like you guys said, Britt Burkhauser, she just went in the off season and put in the time and just came back and is ready to go. I mean, she's hungry for wins. So she knew that she was stepping into a role, that big shoes to fill with Alex Rasky leaving, and she's taken that role seriously, and it's showing. So,
you know, it seems like with your team, the versatility is there, because if you look at your infield, you have several returners, none of them at the same position. And I mean, I think that does say something for the versatility of the squad that you have.
Definitely. And the players are really understanding and kind of cooperative when we're playing around and trying to see how people fit. Obviously, we want them to be comfortable to play and get the win, but it's about how we're going to be stronger on defense. So they're all pretty cooperative about that and being flexible about being moved.
You know, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We talk a lot about the offense of this team and really haven't mentioned really probably one of the anchors to your team, and that's Ashley Betzold in the pitcher's circle. As much as she is a great offensive player, but she's logged a lot of innings this year and has some support this year in terms of other pitchers that are coming on. Talk a little bit about the pitching staff.
Well, like I said, we have Ashley. Ashley is our number one, so she's been pitching a lot of innings, but she's been doing a good job with those. Abby, whenever she comes in, Abby Killian is our sophomore pitcher, and she's been doing well in her innings. So she comes in, she's been getting the job done, and that's nice to be able to take Ashley off the mound once in a while, especially when we get those run support and being able to put Ashley in. Two other pitchers that we've been throwing are Amber Trendle, she's a freshman, and Callie Aldrich, she's a sophomore. So they've both been seeing some time in spring trip. They haven't seen much time since, but they're always ready to go in. So it's nice to kind of have some depth there so that we can have options to move around and see how things go. Going back to that versatility with the players we have.
Yeah. So, all right, well, Samantha, we're out of time. Great job. Thanks for being on the Cardinals Nest, and good luck here the rest of the season.
Thank you.
All right, stay tuned. We'll be right back with the Student Athlete Spotlight with Jacob Frost. That's next here on HBC.
Hi, I'm Dan Picarino with HBC. Our goal has always been to offer the very best TV experience and value possible. Customers often ask, why do we have to pay for a bunch of channels we don't even watch? It's kind of like this. Imagine going into a convenience store and wanting to buy a bag of chips. But to get those chips, you're required to also purchase a candy bar, a slice of pizza, a sandwich, and a pack of gum. That's how one channel you want becomes 4, 5, or even more channels in your lineup. Today, there are 6 multi-billion-dollar corporations that control 90% of the existing networks and programming. We feel strongly that these corporations should not be allowed to double or triple their rates from year to year. There are times that HBC must challenge these media companies to keep their rates reasonable. We hope you will join us in this fight. Please visit tvonmyside.com/HBC to learn more. And thank you for choosing HBC.
And we're back here to wrap up the Cardinals Nest on HBC. A couple of big events this weekend as part of Division III, NCAA Division III week. We have Strikeout Cancer Day was part of the baseball game on Saturday, and then the Racing and the Cure for Jack on Sunday. It's the 5K, not really a race, it's kind of a run walk in support of Jack, who we featured on the show with Jace Pater last week, the son of Neil Cassidy. So Jack Cassidy is who that the superhero 5K is for, Donnie.
Yeah, it's going to be a great weekend. You know, again, like I talked about earlier in the show, it's really neat to see what these student athletes are doing, coming together as a community, so that you know, we can help support these people. The Cancer Society on Saturday, and then the Jogging for Jack on Sunday. Yep. Big weekend for that.
All right, stay tuned now. We have our student athlete spotlight. Here's Nathan Voller with Jacob Frost.
My name is Jake Frost. I'm from Moline, Illinois, and my major is criminal justice law enforcement. When I came to campus for the first time, I fell in love with it. The bluffs are something you don't get to see in Moline, Illinois. So that aspect, and the fact that I had my major is also huge. But I got to meet a lot of the guys on the team, you know, my first visit. So, you know, meeting them was a pretty cool experience. And that was basically one of the biggest reasons I came here, because it was a great group of guys that I met. Once I started getting recruited, it kind of became more and more of a thought of playing. When I was, you know, freshman, sophomore in high school, it wasn't really a big thought in my head, because I was a sophomore. I wasn't really thinking about college at that time. But as I got more and more recruited, yes, it definitely became something I wanted to do, and I'm glad that I did it. I mean, it's a fun experience. It's a great thing to get to experience as a college kid, and especially as a college athlete. So I think, yeah, I mean, as I got going, it was definitely a big thing for my life. It's kind of cool that, especially we have a bluff down here in left field line, but having that in the background is one of the coolest things you could possibly play in front of. I mean, getting to see that wherever you go. I mean, like I said, Moline's kind of a little, you know, flat town. We don't have much bluffs or anything exciting behind our backdrops, but having something cool like that it's a pretty neat experience. It's definitely one of the better fields and atmospheres that I've played in. Here in Winona, I don't think we've had too many home series because of the weather. I know my freshman year, I think we had maybe one home series, and ever since then it's been about 2 or 3. We've played in some pretty cold days. Like I said, this year has been fairly warmer. I think our first home series was on March 10th, and that's never happened in at least the 4 years that I've been here. And I was talking to Donnie, and Donnie said that that's pretty much the earliest they've had on campus for a while. So that just kind of tells you how the weather is this year with hit or miss on it.
I'm sure you get asked this all the time, but how is it playing in Florida for spring training?
We had a good trip. We got off to an 8-2 start. It was warm down there, which is always nice to play in front of it when it's typically about 30 degrees here. But it was warm. It was fun. We got to see, you know, some teams down there that we don't see, and you know, typically around here, and played some really good baseball. Bats were going well. Pitching was going well. I mean, we had a fun trip. So that was an exciting part of the year. That's always fun for the guys to go down there and enjoy the week.
So last weekend you got swept against St. Thomas at home. What are some of the lessons your team has gained from that sweep?
First game was a little bit rough for us, but we got going the second game. We hit fairly well and pitched better the second game. It's a learning experience. That's a big thing, and I think we'll become better because of it. So, I mean, as a team, first game, like I said, we started off a little slow, but as we got going, as the day went on, you know, we got better and better. Our bats got better, you know, defensively we got better. It was just, I mean, we needed to work on some things, and I think we'll get better because of it. I think we'll be all right. We got a lot of tough guys that'll come back and, you know, like I said, get better from it. So the thing we do is we just try not to worry necessarily about a certain team. We don't mark a certain team on the calendar. So when it comes to rivalries, we really don't have one. We like to say respect everyone, fear no one kind of thing. We don't really, like I said, mark anybody specifically on the calendar. We just take it day by day and pitch by pitch and kind of practice by practice. So when the day comes, that's who we're playing. You know, we got to respect the fact that they could beat us on any day, but know that we can beat them on any day too. So like I said, respect no one, respect everyone, fear everybody. Jesus, respect everyone, fear no one. There we go.
There you go.
I would like to become a local police officer in my hometown. My big dream is after about 5 or 6 years there, trying to become a canine officer. I've got 2 beautiful German Shepherds at home. So, you know, working with dogs has always been kind of a passion of mine, and I've always wanted to help people too, so why not put both of them together and become a canine officer. Great group of people, especially if they want to come for baseball, great group of guys. Coaching staff is phenomenal. Teach you life lessons, you know, everything you need to be prepared for life. They do a really good job at The same with the professors and staff and faculty here. They all do a tremendous job. And you get beautiful bluffs like this and scenery like this, so that's a big aspect of it all.